if you've been watching my show, you know, I am a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love the MCU, but I've also been fairly critical of it lately because they've fallen off. They've kind of lost their magic recently, and they are putting out stuff that is just not up to the standard of MCU that they have set over the previous decade or so. So some people have started asking the question, you know, well, maybe it's time to reboot the MCU. And that happens to be the topic of today's Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. Listen, guys, if you have a question for our show and you'd like to hear your own voice on it, go ahead and call our hotline anytime 24/7 at 951-268-4259. Every day we pick out one or two questions to address, and today's just happens to be about, should they be thinking about rebooting the MCU? Check it out.
Hey, John and crew, this is Skylar from North Carolina. As we all know, Marvel's been in a tough spot since Phase 4 has started, also known as the Multiverse Phase, and we know it leads up to Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. But my question is the fact that Marvel's had it very mixed the past few years, what do you think the chances are that they might consider a reboot in their universe after Avengers Secret Wars if this continues? Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, Skylar, thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, look, I get it and I agree. The level of quality, the overall level of quality of the MCU has taken a decline. It doesn't matter if you're a massive MCU lover, maybe you're an MCU hater, but I think we can all agree that in recent years, you know, they're putting out banger after banger after banger after banger. That hasn't been the case like it had been for the previous decade or so. So the question is, should they be looking at rebooting after we get to Secret Wars? Of course, we've got Avengers Kang Dynasty coming, and then Secret Wars. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Secret Wars in just a little bit here. I have been very critical of the MCU lately, but even I have to say, I think talk of rebooting the MCU is a bit premature. Like, do I see merits in rebooting the MCU? I do. It's become an extremely crowded place. They're starting to have some consistency issues. I mean, just multiverse alone, they've had 5 different movies talking about multiverse in 5 different ways. So there's not even like a consistent theorem about how multiverse even works throughout their movies. And maybe it's just kind of getting ahead of itself a little bit. So maybe there could be some wisdom in that. But as far as, are they in a position that they need to reboot because their quality has fallen off as much as it has? I believe that part of it might be a bit premature. Because let's look at a situation with another major comic book movie producing company that is about to do a reboot, which is, of course, DC. Well, with DC, you had a property there that never did live up to its potential, right? Like, they only had, out of all their films, they only had one that ever made $1 billion. And really, they only ever had 2 films that actually kind of lived up to their potential as far as getting audience response, critic response, and box office success. And I would argue that those 2 films were Wonder Woman and the first Aquaman. Those 3 films scored the trifecta. The audiences liked it, the critics liked them, the box office responded, right? But they didn't have any others. Like, you know, I've said this before a million times. You put out a movie called Batman versus Superman, that movie should make $1 billion in its sleep. And it should have the potential to be a $2 billion film. Not that it had to be a $2 billion film, but it had the potential to be a $2 billion film. And I mean, they never even got close to $1 billion on that. Batman versus Superman. And they had a lot of movies that, quite frankly, crap the bed. And we've talked a lot in the recent months that in the last 5 years, the last 7 movies they've put out, none of them have even made $400 million. Right? And the leadership and the filmmakers basically who were overseeing that, and even the studio ownership that was overseeing all that, is now gone. They're all gone. Now you have in brand new leadership, a new head of DC. They're heading for a reboot. This was something that was primed for a reboot. But Marvel has been something very, very different, right? Whereas DC never did quite was able to live up to potential or meet expectations or anything like that, or have really grounded, consistent success. Take a look at Marvel. I mean, Marvel, for almost 10 years, they just put out hit after hit after hit after hit. I mean, yeah, I didn't like Iron Man 2 or Thor: The Dark World all that much, but I mean, you're talking out of all these films, I can't remember how many of them, like 7 of them were billion-dollar films. I just over and over and over again, hit after hit after hit. So now we're in this one window, like since Endgame. After all that, we're in this one window following Avengers Endgame, right? Okay, well, Spider-Man Far From Home was a big hit. Black Widow wasn't very good. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was magnificent. Eternals is better than people give it credit for, although it did financially struggle. It did. It financially struggled. But even its definition of, this is the difference between Marvel and DC. Eternals financially struggled. Well, for Marvel, financially struggled means making still over $400 million, whereas DC, the last 7 films, none of them have made over $400 million. So that's a big difference right there. Spider-Man No Way Home was almost a $2 billion film. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was almost a $1 billion film, making a lot more money than the original one did. But Thor Love and Thunder, big step down. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, in my estimation, was a significant step down from the first Black Panther. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, in my opinion, was terrible. But then you had Guardians of the Galaxy, which was magnificent. Okay, so let's just go up to, let's leave Spider-Man Far From Home out of it, and we'll just go up to Black Widow, okay? Well, now you're only talking movies that they've put out really in the last 2 years. All right, Black Widow was not so great. Shang-Chi was great. Eternals was a question mark. No Way Home was magnificent. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was a big win for them, even though it was a bit of a step down in quality compared to the first Doctor Strange, but it made more money, made almost $1 billion, big hit. Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther, and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania be sell Guardians of the Galaxy. So we're talking about, even in this last just 2-year stretch, we're only talking 2 years, right? From Black Widow to now Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Just 2. As opposed to when we talk, say, again, against the counterpart here that we're making our comparisons to the DC universe, which never really ever got off the ground. And in the last 5 years, this has its real dry spell of all the films making under 400 million. We're talking in the last 2 years. But even in these last 2 years, you had great films like Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home making almost $2 billion, Multiverse of Madness nearly making $1 billion. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I believe, still made over 800 million.
Yeah, it was very decent.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, we can talk all we want about how it was a step down from the first Black Panther. I want you to wrap your head around this. This Black Panther movie, which we all say was a big step down from the first Black Panther, still made more than double of what any DC film has made in the last 5 years. $860 million. More than double. So there's that. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was fantastic, made over $800 million, stuff like that. So is Marvel in a place where they need to consider rebooting after a 12-year run of great success and then a couple of year run where, yeah, they've had some big stumbles, but they've still had some big successes in that run too.
Yeah.
Building off of a previous decade plus of outstanding success.
Even in that list there, we're saying there's about 4 that were just, let's just say they took the L on 4, but there's 5 there that took a win.
Yeah.
So, and I liked Eternals like you, so really I'd say it's more like 3 to 6, not 4 to 5.
Right. But at least we can point to the box office of Eternals, right? And say that was a lower thing, right? Also Shang-Chi, which is, I believe, completely a magnificent film. I mean, of course, we're talking pandemic era and stuff like that, but still, Shang-Chi didn't make big money either, right? So there's that. So yeah, let's call it what it is. But even then, its troubles seem fairly minute compared to the troubles of other franchises we look at and say, these need to reboot. Now, they also ask that question, if things keep going like this. Well, yeah. And by the way, did you notice we're not talking about the Disney Plus thing? I think we all acknowledge that the Disney Plus side of things has been problematic. They've had a couple of big things on there, a couple of really, really excellent things on there, but they also have had some struggles on there. And Bob Iger, you know, the new CEO of Disney, has acknowledged that, yep, the Disney Plus stuff has been diluting the Marvel brand. We're going to reel it in. We're going to make sure we put better effort towards that. So that's good. But we're talking about cinematically. And yeah, I'm just going to say, basically, it's premature to be talking about rebooting this with the small level of struggles they've had compared to the massive level of success that they've had. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Anyway, Chris, you heard, the caller call in and ask. I think we all agree that Marvel's on a dip. I think they've kind of lost that magic touch a little bit right now. But does that put them in a position that they should be seriously sitting down and considering a reboot at this point?
I think at this junction, no, because anything you do is going to be judged against the entirety of the MCU, right? So even if we aren't in love with where it's at right now, you reboot everything. At this point in time, it's going to be, well, that's not my Tony Stark. Well, that's not how this should be. Yeah. Well, they were really building up to something great here. Look at the DCEU, I should say, right? Where no one was showing up to that. And yet we still right now are, I can't believe they've made this change. I can't believe this is happening. Well, where were you guys? Because those movies didn't make the money they should have made. So if you're going to be that mad, you got to show up to these films. And the films have to be good to support the excellent IP that they're using, right? So for the MCU, they first of all have so much set up right now. There's a lot of other things they can mine from. And if we do want things to get a little zesty and fresh again, they just got ownership back of some of their most important characters, the X-Men. Yeah. So there's a lot still to do here. Now, do I think this will be rebooted at some point in time? Of course. The center can only hold for so long. You cannot follow a decades-long journey spanning, 40 plus films. Maybe you can if they get really smart with it, but you're going to want to revisit these comics and at the very least do soft reboots of characters, much like the comics themselves do. But I don't see that happening for another decade, maybe. I'm not sure, I might eat crow later on that, but I think what they're doing right now is staying the course, introducing new characters, and then going to come back to some of these other ones they just got ownership of and try to include them in this universe. I
think there's an elephant in the room here too, by the name of Kevin Feige.
Yep.
Like what's the point of rebooting if Kevin Feige's still like the person who's been in charge? If you're going to say everything's super struggling right now and needs a reboot, well, what's rebooting going to do if it's still the same person in charge, right? And I think Kevin Feige's track record of success pretty much speaks for itself. Now, so if Kevin Feige was on the way out the door, which, by the way, I still believe in the next couple of years he'll leave, because I don't know what's left for him to accomplish at Marvel, to be honest.
And you don't want him to get a Kathleen Kennedy reputation, honestly,
exactly,
either.
And he doesn't want it either.
Yeah.
So at some point, he may decide to leave. But as long as Kevin Feige's still there, what's the point of rebooting because rebooting's not going to fix your problems if it's still the same people running it, right? The better thing to do is, remember, don't forget, for the last couple of years under Bob Chapek, Kevin Feige was stripped of a lot of his power. He did not have the same authority that he used to have under Bob Iger before, and now he's been given his power back. So let's see how that all kind of turns out. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.